Anode Methode Mech. Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today's topic of discussion is mental wellness. And in the conversation on mental wellness, I'm going to be talking about self-consciousness. And I think this is an important conversation because a lot of the times we think that self-consciousness is something that starts and ends in puberty, but a lot of us struggle with self-consciousness throughout our lifetimes, right? It's something that we deal with that harps on our confidence well into adulthood, and it can be really daunting to put yourself out there if it is the case that you are constantly dealing with feelings of self-consciousness. And so as someone who has felt self-conscious a large part of her life, I think that especially it's not something that necessarily is a byproduct of how much attention that you attract, but it is the case that when you feel that there is going to be some sort of spotlight or there's some attention on you and you're not comfortable with attention or you don't want to be the center of attention, self-consciousness can really be the self-sabotaging factor that can really make or break a situation or the outcome that you're looking for. So I want to talk about different ways to address self-consciousness. And so I have my 3 C's: confident, calm, and collected. And I think that these are the 3 C's that will enable us to battle against self-consciousness. And it's important to just recognize that it is what it is at the end of the day, right? Like if the worst thing happens, it happens, and it's never as bad as what it feels like when we're anticipating those events. And oftentimes we can circumvent really bad events if we remain calm, cool, and collected as it takes place. And so I have managed through my own feelings of self-consciousness using these 3 C's. And sometimes it is the people around me, the comments that they make, that create a sense of self-consciousness. It's not always the case that we walk in feeling like we don't have those 3 C's in place. Sometimes we walk into an environment, we're feeling calm, cool, and collected, and then someone makes a comment that breaks it all apart. And so here's how I stay calm, cool, and collected regardless of the situation. Here's how I combat self-consciousness in the situations that matter. And so the first tool, the first weapon in my arsenal when it comes to self-consciousness is humor. I think in all cases where the things that we fear the most will take place in a setting where the outcomes matter, when it happens, I think humor is the best way of dealing with it. And I am someone who can laugh off pretty much anything and everything that is as it relates to myself. I have very minimal hand-eye coordination. I have been in situations where I'm the one who is center stage and I have fallen. I have been in situations where, I'm just kind of minding my own business and someone makes a comment about the smell of my shampoo, like they want it to smell less flowery. Like I have been in positions where people have really gone out of their way to make comments that have made me feel self-conscious, and rather than allow myself to implode or to lose my cool, I laugh it off with humor. And I think it's really important that we recognize that there are certain things that take place in life, like certain information and feedback that we receive that can really be something that is detrimental to our self-confidence. And it's important to know that people have their own ways of seeing, their own way of viewing you, but it doesn't need to be your own. And so because I have, for whatever reason, attracted a lot of unsolicited attention or unsolicited feedback about my appearance, unsolicited feedback about what I should dress, how much I should eat, unsolicited feedback about my hair, literally from head to toe. Like if you can think about a comment that someone could make, or even some of the comments that you're thinking right now that maybe you wouldn't say, trust and believe me when I tell you, someone has said it to me. And sometimes in the worst situations. And afterwards, sometimes when I was younger, maybe I'd cry about it, but now as I'm older, like I feel confident in my skin, regardless of the situations that bring about embarrassment, and they can be a little bit uncomfortable. And so because I leverage this tool called humor, I can laugh it off. So if someone comes and makes a comment on my hair, I can laugh it off, and that way I'm not internalizing that feedback as criticism that makes me feel unsure about myself. I can brush it off because I made a choice to walk out into the world with my hair a specific way. And sometimes it's like feedback that is helpful, like something has happened to my hair and is like worth noting. But if someone has like an issue with my hairstyle, or if someone has an issue with the perfume that I'm wearing, or an issue with the smell of my shampoo, all of these comments I've heard that have made me feel self-conscious, but then I chose to respond with humor. And so humor is also a great tool if you find yourself presenting in front of different people, or you're in meetings where everyone's having a conversation and you make a comment that maybe might be not so much related to the context of the conversation in the room. Then humor for me is always the best medicine. It breaks the ice, it neutralizes the situation very quickly rather than escalating the situation or putting more spotlight in the situation and making everyone feel uncomfortable. Humor is a great tool, and it enables you to circumvent that self-consciousness in and of itself, not let it grow to the point where you can't form your words or you can't continue the conversation that was started, and you can kick out from there. And so another tool in my arsenal when it comes to dealing with self-consciousness, practice indifference. I think that this is really important because sometimes you're in a situation where it's someone really wanting to put a spotlight on something to make you feel small. They're trying to degrade you, to be condescending in a relationally aggressive way. And growing up as a woman, and women know how to do this really well, how to be really passive aggressive, where there's like undertones of aggression taking place here, there, and everywhere. And a lot of the times, like, different people can really not clue into the fact that there's like a vicious attack taking place. I have practiced this aggression in my past. I'm not proud of it, but I have. And because I have been a recipient of this kind of aggression, the best way to neutralize it, if someone's being passive aggressive with their comments in order to try to make you feel self-conscious and in order to try to knock you off your game, the important thing is to exercise practice indifference. When someone is looking to get a reaction out of you, and this could be in any situation, they're just trying to make you feel uncomfortable, make you feel embarrassed, make you fumble over your words, make you lose your train of thought, anything to make it seem like you are less competent than what you are, then you really need to understand that that's the motivation, that's the intention, and why would you let them get away with it? And so in those situations, I exercise practice indifference. I mean, I will take the feedback in isolation of the aggression. Like, if the feedback itself is good feedback, but the packaging in and of itself is pretty ill-intended, then I can pretend like I don't hear the aggression, pretend I don't hear the condescension. I can be indifferent to that, to take the message, and to move right along. It's very important when we think about calm, cool, and collected that we recognize that there are going to be people who take issue with you being calm, cool, and collected. And so if there is the case where someone is really trying to break you away from that posture, then you want to make sure that you don't give them the opportunity to do that. And so how I do that, sometimes I can be very direct and I can deal with the aggression head on if the situation calls for it, but I find a lot of the times practicing indifference is super helpful, and it neutralizes the situation, because when an insult doesn't land, someone is trying to troll you, you exercise practice indifference, or you pretend like you don't understand what they're trying to say, then that in and of itself neutralizes the situation. And so because I can be fairly lighthearted, like I don't take myself too seriously, and like I know that when it is the case that I'm opening my mouth to say something, like I'm not going to do it if I don't know what it is I'm talking about. If someone is trying to knock me off my game, I can maintain this calm, cool, and collected, because ultimately, like, I want value add in those conversations, and I actually set myself up to only extract the value add. And hostility, passive aggressiveness, those kinds of things, for me, I can see them a mile away. I don't consider them to be a value add, so I don't give them the attention that they need to build into a environment that makes me feel uncomfortable, that makes me feel self-conscious, and makes me feel like my competency is in question. I think that's really important. And so a last tip that I want to talk about when addressing self-consciousness is looking and feeling your best. I think that it's really important that when we leave our home, that we are always representing the best version of ourselves in that moment. And the best version of myself looks different in different settings, right? Like, I have my athleisure looks, I have my dressed up looks, my formal looks, I have different looks, but anytime I'm leaving my home, I feel good about the way that I look. And because I feel good about the way that I look, it's gonna be really hard for you to make me feel self-conscious about how I'm looking. And I've had different people really go out of their way to try to harp into my confidence, because there's this confidence itself that can be really intimidating, that can be really jarring to some people who struggle with confidence. And don't let someone's lack of confidence be your own issue. It's really important that we love the skin that we're in, that we own the impressions that we're making with the ways that we choose to represent ourselves. And it also is important that when it is the case we're walking out of our homes, we're not putting ourselves in a situation where we feel self-conscious about how we look when we make the choice to look that way out of the gate. And so for me, like, my appearance is something that I take pride and value in. I take that pride and value in my appearance, regardless of whether I'm made up or made down. Like, I want to make sure that I feel my best self in every situation that I can, so that I can anchor on this confidence and this collectedness and this calmness in situations where there are things happening that could really feel self-conscious. Because I found that when you feel self-conscious, you feel insecure, you're feeling shame, you're feeling all of these different things that make you feel unsure about yourself and unsure about what you're going to say, that takes away from, like, the actual point of those discussions. And so I want to come on here and talk about that, how to battle through self-consciousness and how to feel less self-conscious. I think humor is a great tool. It's something that I leverage all the time. Even if I'm feeling self-conscious because I've done something a little foolish or I've said something a little silly, humor is a great way to brush that off and keep the ball moving. Otherwise, practice indifference is a super useful tool as well, like pretending that it goes over your head, extracting the value out in those conversations, but like not paying attention to the passive aggressiveness or to the undertones of aggression. And lastly, like, making sure that you feel your best self, making sure that you're presenting at your best self. If someone is trying to come and make you feel self-conscious about like your appearance in any way, shape, or form. And again, I've heard it all. I have heard it all, I tell you. And because I feel comfortable and confident in the way that I represent myself in all of the settings that I find myself in, it really doesn't work very well. It gives me a lot of stories to tell for a rainy day. In any case, that was a conversation that I wanted to have today. I want to keep it light as I focus the conversation on self-consciousness. I think all of us feel self-conscious. I think all of us have different ways that we deal with it. But I think going home and feeling horrified by how that situation went is not how we want to serve ourselves. And I think that we want to engage in behaviors in 2025 that serve us. And those are the ways that we combat some of those situations that can make us feel uncomfortable, that can make us feel uncomfortable in our own skin. And that's what self-consciousness is. And I think none of us should feel self-conscious in our own skin. And here are just some quick tips, some different ways to circumvent that. In any case, that was a topic of conversation for today, some food for thought for you. Now, conversations on building confidence and getting to that place where you're feeling calm, cool, and collected is something that is of interest to you. If you want to focus on self-mastery, then we do offer live events twice a month, every month for the foreseeable future on our website. So I do invite you to check that out. We also provide workshops, parent-child workshops, in order to create perseverance, resilience, and grit in children. And so we have 4 core workshops that relate to that. We have autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept. And hopefully these are the kinds of conversation that you want to have. These are the kinds of reasons why you want to integrate yourself in the community. And of course, I invite you to do just that. Now, as it relates to my stalking situation, no information for you as yet, but as soon as I know, you will know too. Thank you again so much, and I look forward to chatting with all of you very soon.